in our walk with God, we often face walls of maybe trials, hardships, maybe the walls around us, maybe oppression, maybe persecution. Maybe there are things that maybe relationship issues. In our walk with God, there are different walls that come before us that prevent us from seeing the promised land. Joshua and the people of Israel were moving into the promised land just as God had told them that He would lead them and guide them, but now they face the wall of Jericho. But amazingly, there are few things that I want to stress on. The first thing is when God tells Joshua about the wall of Jericho, how to pull it down, because we all want our walls to come down, right? We want to pull down those walls that prevent us from moving on where God wants us to go. And what God tells Joshua is, when you read from Joshua chapter 6, let's read from verse 1. Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. The Lord said to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hands, with its king and mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all men of war, going around the city once. Thus shall you do for 6 days. So they were going to do it for 6 days, once a day. And what God tells them in the previous verse is, I have given you the city. The city is already given to you. Now we need to look at the walls of Jericho. The city is inside. Joshua has not yet taken the city, but God is already promising, or God is already declaring that the city is going to be given. That's what I want us to understand, that God, when you are doing the will of God, God's promise is, even before you can see it, it is done. It is done. Even before you can taste your victory is assured. Now what we see God telling Joshua is, on the 7th day, okay, on the 7th day, you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow trumpets. Now, trumpets, when you play music, it's a sign of celebration. Now, the walls have not yet come down, and God is saying, blow the trumpets. You see, what God is saying is, don't wait for the walls to come down, but God is telling them to shout and celebrate. But in verse 10, we see God giving them a small warning. He says, you shall not shout or make your voice heard, neither shall any word go out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout. That means until the 7th day, until the 7th time, don't open your mouth. Don't speak any word. You want to see the walls come down. You want to see the walls of your life come down. You and I need to understand that we need to learn to rejoice and celebrate in advance. We need to live a life of faith even before the walls come down. We need to learn to declare, yes, my God will pull it down. We need to learn to celebrate in the presence of God. We need to learn to be careful what we speak. God was very clear in verse 10, do not open your mouth. That means don't look at the wall and, normally when you see a wall, when you see problems around you, you begin to speak about the problems. You begin to, grumble about the problems. You begin to complain about your situation. The people of Israel could have looked at the wall and said, oh, it's a huge wall. How can we pull it down? Does it make sense going around the wall, shouting, blowing the trumpet on the 7th day? These don't make sense. Maybe they could have used their mouth in a negative way. And that's why God says, don't speak till I tell you to speak. The same way, when you're facing your walls, you need to understand that you speak only when God tells you to speak. You need to learn to speak faith in your situation. You need to learn to speak praise in your situation. Then you will see all the walls come down. Don't grumble, don't complain. You just need to be sensitive to God. Understand His timing, because at God's appointed time, those walls came down. At God's appointed time, your walls will come down. Your problems will be shattered. Your situation will be resolved. No matter what the walls are, if you are sensitive to God and very careful to speak only what God tells you to speak, your issues, your problems, the foundation will be shaken and God will be glorified through your life.